The doors opened a night early at Sleeping Giant Brewing Company for a very special beer and cheese pairing, two of which were from the brewery, 360 Ale and Elevator Wheat. The pairing was hosted by Mirella Amato, founder of Beerology. Mirella was the first Canadian woman to be certified as a Cicerone.
First beer is a beer from King Brewery. It's called King Vienna Lager. And I thought it would be interesting, since we're using two local beers, to bring in three beers that are not usually available here. So we had them brought in from the LCBO. The King Vienna Lager is a crisp lager, but with nice toasted notes. And I paired it with this cheese right here, which is a cheddar with caramelized onions.
I have to say, before you go on, that was my absolute favorite out of all of them.
The flavors really melded nicely, and it was interesting how the caramel notes peaked out, and this cheese is available locally.
Yes.
So it's definitely something you could try out, and there are Vienna lagers that are available locally, the Dos Equis or the Negro Modelo or other Vienna lagers that you could test it with. But you know, when it comes to beer and cheese, I'm a big fan of mixing and matching.
Right. Because you haven't actually tried every single one of these beers and every single one of these cheeses together, right, before tonight?
No, the first pairing was the only one that I had tried before. The other ones were based on food pairing theory and some of my previous experience, and it was done mostly over the phone. I mean, certainly the Sleeping Giant beers I hadn't had before. They just launched today. So
you just got them to describe the taste to you, and you picked the cheese.
Yeah, always speak to the brewmaster, and then from there, you know, zero in on the cheeses to use.
Great. Now tell us about the last one, because the last one was, I found, you also said it was a 7% alcohol.
Yeah.
And it was really, and the cheese was really strong, and the beer was really strong. Tell us about that pairing.
Well, the thing is, when you're pairing beer with food, you want to make sure to match the intensity.
Right.
So this is a very intense cheese, and it needs a very intense beer that'll stand up to it, right? Because if you try to use a light beer, you won't be able to taste your beer at all.
Right.
So I matched the intensity there, and the thing with blue cheeses is they have that sharpness to them.
Yes.
And what I wanted to do is contrast that with a lovely sweetness that this beer has. It has an underlying sweetness, but then it has a nice hop bitterness and alcohol that'll cut through the richness of the cheese. So it was sort of a complementary / contrast pairing, and a delicious adventure, I think. Did you enjoy the pairing?
I had a blast. That was the first time I've ever been to something like that, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, it's certainly not the first time you've had beer and cheese, though.
No. I ate a lot of pizza.
That's right. Pizza, nachos.
Yeah.
I mean, beer and cheese, it seems counterintuitive. A lot of people think cheese and they start thinking about wine.
Yeah.
But a lot of cheese experts agree that beer is actually an easier pairing. It's got the carbonation that'll help scrub the oils and the richness of the cheese off your tongue. And there are also a lot of parallel flavors there. You know, when we did our pairing earlier with the brie, we found the butter notes.
Yes.
With the pecorino, there were some nutty notes that tied in nicely. With the sage derby, the sage tied in nicely with the hops.
Yeah.
So flavors really mirror each other, and they almost pair themselves, some of these combinations.
I love
Pairing
it.
beer with cheese is fun, and it's easy.
I love it. I love it. Fun and easy. Now, you mentioned hopheads.
Yes.
Did you say Canadians are hopheads?
Or some Canadians are hopheads, absolutely. Hopheads are people who are addicted to very, very bitter beers, and they can never get enough bitterness in their beer. And bitterness is actually measured in international bitterness units, IBUs. And if you talk to hopheads, very much like you talk, you know, people who are really into spice, they're always trying to get like a higher IBU beer, I need a 40, I need a 60, I need a 100 IBU, and it becomes this quest. And it's interesting because the concept of very bitter beers is fairly new. These hops that are in these very bitter beers were only developed in the 70s.
Oh, wow.
But it's caught on very quickly. It's very new, and it's even newer here. I would say in Ontario it's maybe been 2 or 3 years that we have very hoppy American style beers that are packaged and readily available. And this is one of them. It's the Headstock IPA that I brought in from Ontario, and it's pretty bold.
Yeah, it's delicious. Now, thank you very much for talking with us. Quickly,
my pleasure.
Before we wrap up, Beerology. You are the founder of Beerology. Just quickly explain to our viewers what that is.
Beerology is my company, and I do guided beer tastings like the one I did tonight, beer and food pairing, and I also do consulting for breweries and for pubs. The specialization of my work, I'm a Cicerone, which is the beer equivalent to a sommelier, and so that's a specialization in selecting the right beer for the occasion, proper glassware, storage and service, and pairing beer with food. So I do a lot of staff training and helping people who want to better describe beer and recommend beers for certain foods and for certain occasions.
I love that that's actually a thing.
It's a fun job. There are 9 of us in Canada right now. I'm the only woman to hold the title.
The only female right here in Thunder Bay on Shop TV.
Right.
Awesome.
Hopefully there'll be more of us soon. I'd love to see more women in the beer industry, but it's great. It's a fun job, that's for sure.
Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Visit me at beerology.ca.
Perfect.
Take care. Stay tuned to Shaw TV for more.